The front entrance to Harry and Deborah Floor's home seldom saw any activity. Typically, they entered and exited through either the garage side door or the sliding glass doors leading to the patio. Adjacent to the entrance on the right stood the formal living room, meticulously maintained yet rarely utilized. On the left, a hallway branched off, leading to 3 bedrooms, including the spacious master suite and a guest bathroom. The formal living room, enveloped in darkness with its heavy curtains drawn, housed a pristine white camel-backed couch against the rear wall, flanked by large wing-back chairs, all arranged around a walnut coffee table. However, none of these details held any significance until that particular day. Late in the morning, Harry found himself seated in one of the wing-back chairs, his back turned to the archway connecting the entryway to the living room. This spot had become his refuge during his wife's absences, a place for introspection and contemplation about his life's complexities. He often found himself calculating the potential losses should he muster the courage to end his failing marriage. Their mutual friends would inevitably choose sides, the house would be lost, alimony payments would burden him for years, and his assets would diminish amidst legal battles. Yet, the thought of dealing with Deborah's vindictiveness loomed large. Lost in these ruminations, Harry was abruptly jolted by the sound of the side door opening, signaling Deborah's return from grocery shopping. He realized he should have moved, feigning activity in their bedroom to avoid another confrontation if caught in the living room. Arguments were a common occurrence in the Flores household, typically initiated by Deborah and centered around unwarranted critiques of Harry for trivial matters, concocted reasons, or sometimes for no reason at all. Harry understood that Deborah's aim was to keep him off balance, simply for the sake of it. She could sustain a dispute over the smallest of issues for weeks, yet Harry always managed to find a way to appease her and bring it to an end. In Harry's perspective, life lost its worth amidst constant friction. He believed it was better to resolve conflicts promptly. However, the challenge lay in the fact that a new argument would inevitably arise shortly afterward. After a decade of marriage, Harry saw divorce as the only escape from the hopeless situation. Nevertheless, he persisted in his efforts to improve things, primarily to preserve his own sanity, rather than solely to please his wife. As Harry heard the freezer door close, indicating Deborah's return and her intention to send him out for the remaining groceries, he anticipated her habitual demands. She often directed him on tasks, expecting not just obedience, but also enduring her criticisms throughout. Harry, wishing to delay facing her for as long as possible, remained motionless, bracing himself for her call, or even worse, her whistle, an act that increasingly grated on his nerves, likening it to the call of a pet. Instead of her voice, he discerned the sound of her light footsteps nearing the entryway. Had he glanced up, he would have observed her pausing at the tiled floor, scanning the hallway cautiously to ensure privacy. Harry remained silent, waiting in anticipation. Deborah's thoughts raced as she entered the house, contemplating whether she should have called ahead while still in the car. Driving and talking simultaneously posed challenges, though, and she felt safe now. She assumed Harry was diligently working on the gazebo in the backyard. Within moments, Harry detected the faint chirp of Deborah's cell phone as she dialed a number. She was now just a few feet away in the entryway, unaware of his presence. "Hi, Daddy. Can you talk now?" Deborah's choice of address puzzled Harry. "We're good for Thursday afternoon. I'll call him at work after 1 o'clock. He should be back from lunch by then. If he's at his desk, we'll be fine for a few hours. I'll open the back gate like always and see you about 2. Deborah's conversation continued, leaving Harry perplexed. As the other party responded, Deborah cooed, "Sure, Daddy. You know I adore you. I've got to go and find out where my boy is now. I'll see you Thursday." Harry heard the snap of the flip phone closing before Deborah's footsteps receded toward the sliding glass door. She whistled and called out to him, seemingly unaware of his presence or the tension brewing within him. Although Harry found himself in a tense situation, his military and life experiences had equipped him with automatic responses. He reminded himself not to panic unless directly threatened, leveraging his knowledge to his advantage and selecting the opportune moment to act. He focused on maintaining a blank expression, controlling his breathing, and projecting an air of normalcy. Harry rose from his seat and made his way into the den, concocting an excuse as he went. "I'm back. Was in the bathroom. Need to dash to the hardware store for Gaziggle parts," he uttered, avoiding eye contact as he navigated toward the kitchen and the side door. He marveled at his ability to vocalize his words and at his restraint from throttling her on the spot. She turned to observe him as he passed, noting the flush in his cheeks. "Wear a hat outside. You're turning red. Can't stand the sight of your peeling skin in a couple of days. And bring in the groceries before you go anywhere, and don't linger all day," she instructed, dropping her phone into her purse on the kitchen counter before heading to inspect his gazebo progress. Criticisms awaited upon his return, as usual. This was classic Deborah. Nearly every utterance came with directives and either implicit or explicit criticisms. As she ventured into the backyard, Harry discreetly retrieved her phone from the purse, swiftly noting the last dialed number before returning it to its place. After Harry finished stowing away the groceries, he departed in his compact pickup truck. However, he didn't head for the hardware store, as he claimed. Instead, he made a stop at a nearby local park, a couple of blocks away. For the initial 15 minutes, he meticulously replayed the brief conversation he had just overheard in his mind. He wanted to ingrain every word into his memory. To ensure clarity, he even made some notes. There was no ambiguity. The message was clear. His wife was engaged in an affair, and worse, it seemed to be taking place under his own roof, perhaps even in their shared bed while he was away at work. The realization filled him with a seething anger, knowing he was unknowingly financing her betrayal while toiling away to support her. Questions raced through his mind. Who was the mysterious daddy she was speaking to? It couldn't be her actual father, given the local area code and her parents residing thousands of miles away in California. In the early stages of their marriage, she occasionally referred to Harry as Daddy during intimate moments. Though she had long ceased this habit, Harry recalled it distinctly, finding it slightly peculiar. Initially, he had thought it might signal her desire for children, but they had mutually decided against starting a family a few years into their marriage. However, she undeniably exhibited traits of a daddy's girl. As Harry's thoughts shifted to practical considerations, he contemplated his next move. Her lover would be entering through the back gate on Thursday, likely walking down the alley. Harry pondered the possibility of ambushing him there, but then the question arose. What would he do with his unfaithful wife? If the lover arrived on foot, his vehicle must be parked nearby. Suddenly, a realization dawned on him. The lover would likely leave his car right here at the park. Who was this mysterious man, and how could Harry uncover his identity? The obvious approach would be to dial the number retrieved from Deborah's cell phone. He could orchestrate a scenario where someone else, perhaps a woman, inadvertently called the number and attempted to extract information about the man's identity. But who could make that call? The first person who came to mind was Deborah's closest friend, Dorothy. If anyone else knew about the affair, it was likely Dorothy. Deborah's relationship with her sister was strained, making it improbable that she would be privy to such information. Since Dorothy had always been a friend to both Harry and Deborah, he contemplated whether he could confide in her. However, he hesitated, recognizing the strong bond that often existed between women, sometimes surpassing loyalty to their spouses. Dorothy was married to John, who, despite their age difference, shared a seemingly loving and devoted relationship with her. Harry assumed Dorothy would confide in John about most things, but would she disclose Deborah's infidelity to him? Harry considered John a friend, although not particularly close. Nevertheless, he believed John, being a man of integrity, would have informed him if he had knowledge of such a situation. Harry opted to approach John, requiring a trip to the golf course where John, enjoying semi-retirement, dedicated his Saturdays as a goodwill ambassador for the course. This role granted him a complimentary round of golf during less crowded times. En route, Harry meticulously devised his strategy. He couldn't risk blurting out sensitive information that might inadvertently reach Dorothy and subsequently Deborah. He needed to proceed with caution. "John, I have a hypothetical question for you." Harry broached the topic as they rode together in a golf cart, accompanying John to assess conditions at the seventh hole. If you were privy to a confidential conversation, would you feel compelled to maintain confidentiality, or would you disclose it to Dorothy? John shot Harry an intrigued glance before driving on for a few yards. Are you implying you want me to keep something from Dorothy? I suppose I'm inquiring whether you and Dorothy share all confidential information you receive from others, even if it's shared in confidence. It's purely hypothetical, Harry clarified. John halted the cart, steering onto the grass, and turned to face Harry directly, a sense of expectancy in his gaze. Do you have a specific question in mind? If so, feel free to ask, he replied, his expression remaining intense. In the event I do pose a question, can I trust you to maintain the confidentiality of this conversation? Harry inquired cautiously. I can assure you of this. I won't divulge it unless Dorothy specifically asks, but if she does, I won't deceive her. That's my principle, Harry. I'll respect confidentiality, but I won't lie to my wife or a friend, John asserted firmly. Sensing that John was aware of something, Harry gathered his composure and posed the question directly. John, are you aware of any extramarital affair my wife may be involved in? May be involved in. Technically, no, John responded, before unleashing a torrent of information, as if a floodgate had been opened. It was last New Year's, at the Holden's party, John recounted as he and Harry sat together, discussing the unsettling revelation. Everyone had gathered outside for the fireworks display. Dorothy had indulged in champagne, a rare occurrence for her. Feeling unwell, she retreated upstairs to the bathroom on the landing. While she was indisposed, she heard someone attempting to open the door. After she finished and exited the bathroom, she heard noises emanating from down the hall, where it curves toward the bedrooms. Concerned that someone might be in need of assistance, she investigated. At the end of the hallway, she found Deborah pressed against the wall with a man, engaging in inappropriate behavior. Harry listened intently as John continued, relaying Dorothy's account of the incident. Deborah noticed Dorothy's presence and dismissively gestured for her to leave. On the ride home, Dorothy disclosed the encounter to me. Given the long-standing friendship between Dorothy and Deborah, she opted to speak with Deborah before taking further action. I, however, believed it was imperative to inform you immediately. John paused briefly before divulging Deborah's explanation to Dorothy. According to Deborah, it was a one-time occurrence, fueled by alcohol, a disagreement with you, and aggressive advances from the man in question, Buddy Mitchell. Dorothy is familiar with him. He's notorious for his bullying behavior and married into wealth, his wife being a lawyer. So, Dorothy asked me to keep it quiet, since we didn't want to destroy your marriage over a single incident. But I told her, if you ever asked me about it directly, I wouldn't lie to you. It's been eating away at me for these past 5 months. I'm relieved it's out, but I'm truly sorry, man, John confessed, his remorse evident in his tone. Deborah lied to Dorothy. It's not over. She's been carrying on with this guy, or maybe it's some other guy by now. I'd overheard her talking to him on the phone just an hour ago, John added, his anguish palpable. God, man, if I had known, I would have come to you. I'm so sorry, Harry. Let's head back to my place and see what Dorothy has to say. Maybe she knows something else, John suggested, his concern for Harry evident. Leaving the golf course in their respective vehicles, they drove to Dorothy and John's home. Harry broke the news to his wife, who sat down, tears streaming down her face. She had hoped against hope that things would work out for Harry and Deborah. Now, learning that the affair was ongoing, her expression shifted from sorrow to a hint of betrayal. Dorothy had trusted Deborah's assurance that the affair was over, and her actions, or lack thereof, had been based on that lie. Dorothy, there's something you could do for me. I checked Deborah's phone, and I have the number she called. Would you call him, pretend it's a wrong number, and try to get his name? I want to be certain who she's seen now, Harry requested, a glimmer of determination in his eyes. Dorothy, who worked from home as an editor with a PhD in English literature and a background in theater, meticulously strategized her approach. Utilizing her impeccable acting skills and adept social engineering abilities, she prepared for the call. Her flawless English accent, always a source of admiration, would be her key to success. Setting her phone to speaker mode, she dialed the number. "Hi, this is Buddy Mitchell," came the response. Dorothy blinked in surprise. "Sorry, wrong number," she quickly replied, her carefully crafted scenario crumbling before her eyes. Despite the disappointment, the message was clear. Deborah had not terminated her affair with Mitchell, confirming another crucial piece of information. As they deliberated their next steps, Harry remained resolute in his determination to catch Deborah and her paramour in the act at their next rendezvous on Thursday. However, he desired additional evidence to confront his wife comprehensively. He aimed to catch her not only red-handed, but also in the web of lies she would undoubtedly spin to conceal her actions. "I can't afford to hire a detective to tail her. Plus, she might not even meet or communicate with Mitchell before Thursday. Divorce expenses are looming, and I need concrete evidence quickly," Harry voiced his concerns. Silence enveloped the room as they pondered their options. "What if there was a mole?" Dorothy proposed. "A mole? What do you mean?" Harry inquired. "What if someone close to her, like her best friend, were to extract the truth from her?" Dorothy suggested. "You do that?" Harry asked, surprised. "Never underestimate an infuriated woman, guys. I've had enough of her and how she's treated us all. I believe I can concoct a story that will coax the truth out of her," Dorothy asserted confidently. For the next hour, they meticulously devised their plan. Dorothy would reach out to Deborah, feigning desperate need for assistance. They would arrange a coffee meeting on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, John would modify an old purse of Dorothy's to discreetly house a video camera, capturing every word and expression during the rendezvous. By Sunday noon, they anticipated having gathered invaluable insights. "Deborah, I need to talk to you urgently. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow morning? I'm in a bit of a bind, and you're the only one I trust with the experience to help me out," Dorothy appealed over the phone. "What's going on, Dorothy? Is everything all right with you and John?" Deborah responded with concern. "It's not that. Deborah, remember the incident at last New Year's party? Well, I find myself in a situation similar to that." Dorothy hinted, hoping Deborah would understand the gravity of the matter. "Ah, I see. I might be able to offer some assistance with that. How about 10 o'clock at the new coffee spot in the mall? Let's choose a quiet corner to chat. I'll see you there," Deborah agreed readily. Secretly, Deborah couldn't help but smile. It seemed like her old friend was finally breaking free from her shell. Dorothy had been stuck with that old coot of a husband for years, and Deborah believed she deserved better. Besides, Dorothy still had her charm. The thought of having a confidant to share tales with, reminiscent of the bond she once shared with her sister, excited Deborah. She looked forward to imparting her knowledge and wisdom to Dorothy, just as her sister and, more importantly, her father had done for her. Arriving early at the coffee shop, Dorothy selected a table outside under the shelter of an awning. Carefully arranging her purse on the table, she checked the concealed camera inside. She positioned 2 chairs away from the table, leaving only one spot for Deborah to sit. Ensuring the camera angle and audio were optimal, Dorothy conducted some final tests. With the calm air eliminating any risk of wind noise, she primed the camera to start recording with a single button press. Equipped with a 16 gigabytes memory card, the camera could capture ample footage. Thanks to John's ingenuity, the camera was discreetly integrated into the purse with Velcro straps, blending seamlessly into its design. Dorothy was poised and prepared when Deborah arrived. "Deborah, could you grab us some coffee while I save our spot? This corner seems the most secluded," Dorothy requested. "Sure thing, be right back," Deborah agreed before heading to the counter. As Deborah returned with the drinks, Dorothy surreptitiously activated the on button on the concealed camera, ensuring it was recording. After exchanging brief pleasantries, Dorothy delved into her narrative. "Deborah, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. There's this guy who's interested in me, and I'm not sure what to do. He's quite charming, and it's been a while since John and I have been intimate. John trusts me completely, and I've never considered cheating on him. But now, I'm tempted. I'm seeking your advice because of what happened after the New Year's party. Will I regret it if I go through with it?" Dorothy confessed. "Go for it, girl. Honestly, I don't understand why you haven't done this sooner. John's a nice guy and all, but he's past his prime. You're still young and beautiful. I've always admired your appearance, but I've never grasped why you stick with John," Deborah responded candidly. "Wow, no guilt then. You seem pretty confident about this. Was the party incident truly a one-off?" Dorothy probed further. "Honey, I won't sugarcoat it now. I had to reassure you back then or risk exposing our secret. But now that you're in a similar situation, we can share everything. In fact, we're in for some exhilarating conversations," Deborah admitted. "Deborah, spill the beans. I'm intrigued now that I'm contemplating the same path. How did things start with you and Buddy? Are you two still involved?" Dorothy inquired eagerly. "The gleam in your eyes says it all. If you're not feeling a little flushed right now, I bet you will be soon. All right, here's the scoop on Buddy. We actually crossed paths 2 months prior at the Holden's Halloween bash, remember? I was donning that leopard outfit, and Buddy couldn't take his eyes off me for the first hour. And well, I returned the favor," Deborah disclosed, igniting a conversation filled with intrigue and desire. When his wife was occupied with the trick-or-treaters at the front door, and Harry was tending to the fire out back, Buddy sidled up beside me and murmured to rendezvous on the landing in 5 minutes. I simply nodded in agreement. You know how bustling and sprawling that party was, with the vastness of the house making it effortless to slip away unnoticed. So I strolled along the dimly lit hallway and ascended to the landing. It was deserted up there, as all the excitement was downstairs. Upon reaching the landing, Buddy pulled me into a fervent kiss and guided me into the bathroom, securing the door behind us. "Dorothy, he's formidable, and he takes what he desires. That's what entices me. No pretense, no declarations of love. None of that sentimental nonsense. We indulged probably 20 times between that Halloween and New Year's. We attempted a repeat on Halloween night, but you were occupying the bathroom, so we sought out another location." "So, it didn't conclude there, did it? Aren't you still involved with him?" Dorothy inquired. "Absolutely, darling. He's exhilarating. Furthermore, we have plans to convene next week, in the comfort of my own bed," Deborah divulged. "Goodness, that's quite bold. But what about Harry? Do you not feel any twinge of guilt towards him?" Dorothy pressed further. "Dorothy, Harry is a husband. You don't treat a husband in the same manner as a lover. They serve entirely distinct purposes. Harry is there to fulfill my desires. Buddy, on the other hand, brings me joy," Deborah asserted confidently. "Dorothy, let me give you my take on Harry. He was a practical choice for a husband because I knew he'd always be a reliable provider. It's a relief he didn't push for kids. He's obedient, easily influenced. I've got him under my thumb, like a TV remote. A little display of jealousy or a sporadic argument throws him off, keeps him in check. Sometimes I'll even sniff him when he gets home, pretending to check for perfume, just to throw him off the scent of my infidelity. And when we watch movies about cheating husbands, I make a big show of condemning it, assuring him I never tolerate such behavior. Having Harry around is like having a loyal pet. He's so passive. I can treat him however I please, and he keeps coming back for more. I throw him scraps of attention now and then, and in return, I have all the freedom I desire. I can come and go as I please, while he has to clear every move with me first. I always know where he is, so I never have to worry about him catching me with another man." "So, you've had other lovers?" Dorothy inquired. "Oh, Dorothy, I've lost count. The first one was that first year we were married. He was barely legal, just some guy picked up in the supermarket. He never even knew my real name. We flitted around hotel rooms for about 6 months until he got too clingy. You've got to be cautious with the young ones," Deborah recounted casually. "After that, I had a string of brief encounters. There was this vendor friend once, but it was convenient because he only visited town a few times a year. However, Buddy stuck around longer than any of them. By the way, he's married to a woman who clearly turns a blind eye. She works while he indulges. He can come to me almost any time, and I'm the one pulling the strings. So, spill the beans on your new conquest. Where did you meet him?" Dorothy eagerly inquired, launching into her fabricated tale about her supposed lover, Bill. The specifics were irrelevant, but Dorothy's performance was flawless, convincing Deborah with every word and even prompting her to encourage Dorothy to seize the moment. "Deborah, I can't help but admire how you're always in control. I'm not sure if I could manage John the way you handle Harry," Dorothy confessed. "Honey, in the animal kingdom, you have your dominant figures, and then there's the rest of the pack, obedient and serving. The drones are there to cater to the queen bee. I'm the alpha with Harry, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The alpha chooses her mates, and so I exercise that privilege because it's mine." Harry could have claimed that position if he had it in him, but he didn't. He may put up a struggle at times, but he could never outlast me. He detests confrontation, but I thrive in it. I've got more endurance, and I ensure I'd always come out on top. I'm the alpha. You could easily do the same. I don't see any reason why you couldn't take the reins. John couldn't replace you at his age. All you need to do is step into that role, and freedom will be yours. Start dating Rhoda and relish every moment. John will still be there, and the more you mistreat him, the more he'll slip into his innate submissive role. You could openly date Bill in front of John, and he'd simply accept it. That's just how things operate in the real world. You've always been in control, you just haven't fully exploited it yet, Deborah advised sagely. Their conversation had stretched on for quite some time, and Dorothy was eager to retrieve the recording and share it with John and Harry. With profuse thanks, she bid Deborah farewell and headed home. As they watched the footage, Dorothy and John were taken aback by the stark transformation in Deborah's demeanor. Her usual demeanor around others didn't hint at such callousness towards Harry. Harry himself was stunned, although he had learned that Deborah was capable of surprising behavior. "Another angle we haven't considered is Kelly Mitchell," Harry pointed out. "Do you have any insights into her, Dorothy? She must be aware of her husband's infidelity. I feel a moral obligation to inform her about his affair with Deborah in case she's unaware. But if she already knows, she might intervene and jeopardize our plan." "I've only had brief interactions with Kelly at a couple of parties," Dorothy recalled. "She maintains a facade, but there's a palpable sense of unhappiness. Given her husband's reputation as a bully, it's possible she's under his thumb. It's risky to involve her. She might inadvertently foil our plan. However, if she's cooperative, she could potentially help expose him. I could try reaching out to her discreetly, gauge her stance on his infidelity, and assess whether she's likely to aid or hinder us. You've handled the video brilliantly, so I trust you to handle Kelly Mitchell. The sooner we address this, the better it will be for my plans." "All right, everyone. I appreciate your assistance. Once I hear back about Mrs. Mitchell, you both are off the hook. I won't involve you any further, and it's best you remain unaware of the details." "Harry, you're not planning anything reckless, are you?" Dorothy inquired cautiously. "Reckless? Like the things I've been enduring for the past decade?" Harry retorted, his frustration evident. "No, I mean something violent," Dorothy clarified. Harry didn't offer a direct response. "I'll deal with this the only way I know how. I implore all of you to maintain strict confidentiality. If she reaches out to you, simply ignore her calls. That way, whatever unfolds will be beyond your control. I'll shoulder full responsibility." Later that evening, Dorothy took a bold step and dialed Kelly Mitchell's number. "Kelly, this is Dorothy Clark. We've crossed paths at the Holden's gatherings a few times," Dorothy began. "Hi, Dorothy. Of course, I remember you. What's on your mind?" Kelly's voice carried a hint of curiosity. "Dare I ask if you're alone at the moment?" "I need to ensure our conversation remains confidential," Dorothy inquired cautiously. "Buddy's out running errands and I'm just here reading. Is everything all right? Is this about a legal matter?" Kelly responded, her tone shifting slightly. "Well, in a way, it could involve legal matters. Kelly, I'll be blunt. I'm terribly sorry to deliver such news, but I believe you deserve to know. Buddy is being unfaithful to you. It's not with me, but with someone I'm acquainted with. I'm deeply sorry you're hearing this from me," Dorothy conveyed with empathy. There was a heavy silence on the other end, followed by the sound of muffled sobs. That scumbag. He'd assured me it was all in the past. A year ago, he swore he was done with that. I forgave him on that promise, and I made it clear if he did it again, I'd be done with him, Kelly lamented tearfully. Dorothy offered her words of comfort before gently probing further. Kelly, what would you like to do about this? I understand it's not my place to ask, but depending on your decision, I may be able to offer some assistance. Dorothy, I truly value your support. Let me assure you, Buddy will never set foot in my bed again. I have a rock-solid prenuptial agreement, and I've made it abundantly clear that if I catch him cheating, he's out on the streets with nothing. He's utterly dependent on me for everything, and without my financial support, he'll be destitute. He can't hold down a job, and his only skill seems to be charming his way into social events. He'll be scraping the bottom of the barrel until he finds some other unsuspecting woman to take him in. Kelly, I'm glad to hear you're taking a firm stance. I can provide you with the evidence you need, but I need your assurance that you'll keep your composure for a few days and not tip him off that you're onto him. Can you handle that? Dorothy inquired. You have my word. I'll be as cool as a cucumber, and he won't suspect a thing until I have concrete evidence in my possession, Kelly affirmed resolutely. Excellent. Can I arrange for someone to drop off some initial evidence at your office tomorrow? Dorothy proposed. They arranged a meeting, and Dorothy wasted no time in contacting Harry the following morning. He was to meet her at her office at 1 p.m. on Monday. Harry entered Dorothy's office holding the video camera. After introductions and a handshake, he took a seat. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm the husband of the woman your husband is involved with. Here she is, in her own words, Harry stated solemnly as he placed the camera on her desk. With a few clicks, he found the relevant section and pressed play. Although the screen was small, the audio came through loud and clear. Harry noticed tears welling in Kelly's eyes. He moved around the desk and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I can only imagine how you must be feeling. This is all new to me, as I've only recently discovered my wife's actions, but it seems you've known about Buddy's behavior for quite some time. Am I right? Kelly, I'm planning something, and I want to extend the offer for you to be involved. It's going to happen regardless, so if you choose not to participate, I understand. However, I wouldn't feel right if I didn't give you the option, Harry explained. Harry, he's been terrorizing me for years. I've endured it time and again. There have been moments when I've genuinely feared for my safety. I'm done tolerating it. I want to turn the tables. I want him to feel some pain, Kelly expressed with resolve. Harry, will your plan involve violence? She inquired cautiously. It might get messy. I won't resort to murder, but I fully expect to give your cheating husband a thorough beating. Does that pose a problem for you? Harry replied candidly. Harry, I'm 5'5", and he's 6'2". I've never stood a chance against him. No offense, but I'm not convinced you can take him in a fair fight, Kelly admitted with skepticism. It won't be a fair fight. I'll make sure he gets what's coming to him, Harry affirmed confidently. Kelly offered a faint smile and nodded. Count me in then. Just one request, Harry. Leave a little something for me to handle as well. After his meeting with Kelly Mitchell, Harry found it hard to focus on work. The sting of Deborah's hurtful words from the video lingered, and though he disagreed with her characterization of him, he couldn't deny there was some truth to it. He didn't see his accommodating nature as a weakness, but rather as an effort to maintain peace in their marriage. Yet he couldn't shake off the feeling of being belittled, especially when she referred to him as her little gay friend. Determined to assert his masculinity, Harry contemplated confronting Deborah before Thursday's planned confrontation. What would her reaction be if he asserted himself more forcefully? Would she desire him more, or would it push her further away? Deep down, he knew their trust had been irreparably shattered, rendering any reconciliation impossible. However, he couldn't help but wonder if showing her a different side of himself might make her reconsider her actions during those lonely nights ahead. In the days leading up to Thursday, Harry's office became a hub of distraction. Rather than focusing on his usual tasks, he found himself engrossed in mapping out potential scenarios for the impending confrontation. Aware of the inherent unpredictability of such situations, he meticulously crafted various strategies, hoping to anticipate every possible outcome. Despite his efforts, he knew that adaptability would be key once Thursday arrived. Outside of work, tension permeated the atmosphere at home. Communication between Harry and Deborah was terse, limited to essential exchanges. Deborah, typically assertive in their relationship, found herself hesitating, uncertain of Harry's uncharacteristic behavior. She suspected it was a passing phase, perhaps a reaction to workplace stress, and opted to observe rather than confront him. However, beneath her outward composure, she harbored a growing unease, symbolized by the knife she now carried for a sense of security. As Harry immersed himself in physical training at the company gym, his mind buzzed with anticipation. Each exercise served as a rehearsal for the impending showdown, fueling his determination. Meanwhile, Deborah grappled with conflicting emotions, torn between her desire to maintain control and the gnawing fear of what Harry's behavior might signify for their relationship. In the midst of uncertainty, one thing remained certain. Thursday would bring clarity, for better or for worse. As Thursday approached, Deborah's anticipation grew. She hoped that encountering Buddy would provide clarity amidst the chaos of their unraveling relationship. Meanwhile, on Tuesday night, while Deborah was occupied in the shower, Harry delved into his dresser drawers in search of a treasured heirloom from his grandfather. This item held sentimental value, having been passed down through generations of military service. Harry's father and grandfather, both veterans, had imparted stories of wartime experiences, including the acquisition of a set of brass knuckles from a fallen German soldier after the Normandy campaign. Harry inspected the formidable steel weapon, recognizing its potential significance in the looming conflict with Deborah and her illicit lover. In Harry's eyes, this situation mirrored warfare. Deborah's betrayal and her affair with Buddy represented a breach of trust akin to an enemy's underhanded tactics. As he held the steel knuckles in his hand, he understood that drastic measures were necessary. Just as his ancestors had confronted adversaries with resolve, Harry prepared to face this challenge head-on, determined to reclaim control of his life. Harry forced down a hearty breakfast at work on Thursday morning, knowing he wouldn't eat lunch. He hoped his rival would, which might slow him down. Mostly, he paced his office floor, meticulously going over details. He had strategically placed a few items in the guest bedroom, hoping to utilize them. Whether Deborah waited for her lover in the backyard or simply opened the gate and returned inside, he was prepared to adapt. His fingers traced the steel knuckles sitting on his desk as he paced, stoking his controlled anger. By 1 o'clock, he had changed into jeans, a t-shirt, and sturdy running shoes. He double-checked his pockets, cell phone, keys, knuckles, billfold. Before leaving, he dialed Deborah from his desk phone, ensuring she would see his work number on the caller ID and know he was genuinely at the office. This preemptive call aimed to thwart any attempt from Deborah to reach him. He maintained a calm demeanor on the call, informing her of afternoon meetings and his unavailability. Deborah interpreted his call as a return to his usual docility, easing her concerns. As she prepared to meet her lover, she relaxed with this knowledge. It took 20 minutes for Harry and Kelly to drive to the park. Loverboy's car hadn't arrived yet. Kelly dropped Harry off, and he jogged down the street to his house, slipping into the backyard through the side gate far from the garage. Concealed behind a photinia bush, he anxiously checked the time on his muted phone. At 1:45, Deborah emerged into the backyard clad in a string bikini, making her way toward the back gate, which served as Harry's cue. He had strategically left the side gate slightly ajar, slipping through it and maneuvering around to the front entrance. With his key, he unlocked the front door and traversed the very spot where his wife's betrayal had been uncovered days earlier. Moving swiftly, Harry retrieved a cordless drill and some hardware from the spare bedroom before advancing to the master bedroom. In a matter of moments, he affixed a hasp to the inside of the door, leaving a lock dangling from it. To prevent any accidental closure, he wedged a small piece of wood between the door and the jamb. Heart racing, he armed himself with brass knuckles, grabbed the video camera from the guest bedroom, and poised himself for what lay ahead. Despite the myriad possibilities for things to go awry, Harry remained composed, focusing on executing his plan flawlessly. As he stood in the guest bedroom, brass knuckles donned and camera in hand, he listened intently to the approaching sounds. The sliding glass door shifted, accompanied by laughter and murmurs. Deborah's giggles mingled with a deep masculine growl, evoking a mental image of her companion. Quietly trailing behind, Harry positioned the camera strategically within the master bedroom, ensuring it captured every damning detail. His anticipation mounted as he awaited the moment of undeniable evidence, the penetration he desperately sought to expose. With bated breath, Harry steeled himself outside the door, bracing for what lay ahead. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the couple indulged in unhurried passion, their intimate exchanges confirming Harry's worst suspicions. The familiarity of Deborah's words only fueled his resentment, solidifying his belief in her unresolved issues. For Harry, the wait was agonizing, each passing moment amplifying his seething rage. Yet he remained steadfast in his resolve, determined to confront the betrayal head-on. Here's what happened next in a nutshell. He had seen enough. With a touch of the brass knuckles for luck, he approached the bed where his wife, Deborah, was entangled with another man. Without hesitation, he shoved the man away, unleashing a furious tirade against him. Steve, the intruder, quickly realized the situation and prepared to confront Harry, Deborah's husband, who seemed to be of smaller stature but radiated a menacing aura. As Steve advanced, Harry strategically stepped back, luring Steve into a false sense of security. With a swift movement, Harry attacked Steve and struck him with his knuckles. Then, with calculated precision, Harry continued the attack. He succeeded, Steve was neutralized and subdued. Meanwhile, Deborah pleaded with Harry to spare Steve, revealing her deceitful nature as she attempted to manipulate the situation in her favor. Unmoved by her pleas, Harry locked the door, trapping them all inside. Deborah's tone shifted from anger to desperation as she realized her vulnerability in the face of Harry's wrath. Harry handcuffed Steve to the bed. He demanded answers from Deborah, unraveling the web of lies she'd spun to justify her infidelity. As Deborah attempted to salvage the situation with half-truths and excuses, Harry exposed her deception, revealing that he had been aware of her affair all along. With cold determination, Harry announced his intention to end their marriage and exact revenge on both Deborah and Steve. Summoning his accomplice, Kelly, Harry orchestrated the final act of his vengeance. With cruel irony, they discussed the fate of Deborah and Steve, contemplating gruesome punishments that would ensure their suffering. Ultimately, Harry decided to leverage legal consequences against Deborah and psychological manipulation against Steve, leaving them both to face the consequences of their actions. I'll be invoking our prenuptial agreement. That will certainly put him in a tight spot. If I catch him cheating, which we clearly have, he gets nothing. I'll take him to the hospital and spin a tale about an accident in the garage. He won't dispute it, knowing I can cut him off completely. If he cooperates, maybe I'll throw him a bone. As for your mistress, she's your problem now. Any ideas on how to handle her? Kelly asked. As for Deborah, her father holds a significant place in her life. I suspect there's more to their history than meets the eye, although I lack concrete evidence. However, if this divorce gets ugly, her father will likely disinherit her, just as he did her sister. He won't tolerate any damage to his reputation. Losing that inheritance will cripple her financially, especially since half of what I have won't sustain her for long. And even after the divorce, I still hold some leverage with a few revealing videos. Perhaps that will keep her vindictiveness in check. So I'll allow her to dress, take her car, and find a place to lick her wounds. But Deborah, don't bother with the ATM or credit cards. They won't work for you. You might find a few bucks in your purse, and here's a quarter for your troubles. Epilogue. Harry and Kelly maintained a long-distance friendship, occasionally turning to each other in moments of emotional vulnerability. Both were wary of entering into new relationships after painful experiences in the past. One aspect of Harry's past that haunted him was his mistreatment of Deborah. He deeply regretted his actions, realizing that they did not reflect his true self. He compared them to a moment of cruelty during the war and vowed never to repeat such behavior. However, he felt no remorse for the damage Buddy had caused. Kelly's insurance company covered the basic costs of Buddy's facial reconstruction, but it refused to fund extensive reconstructive surgery. After the breakup, Buddy had difficulty attracting new partners and sank into depression, eventually disappearing from view. Deborah agreed to reasonable compensation and took refuge with her sister, struggling with feelings of betrayal and self-blame. She was haunted by memories of the incident with Harry and Buddy, and depressed by the predator-prey dynamic. Despite occasional bouts of longing, Harry had no reciprocal feelings for Deborah. The second story. I had anticipated an early arrival at the lawyer's office, but upon my attorney's tardy appearance and our subsequent entry into the conference room, I found Mike and his female counsel already present. Witnessing their interaction stirred the familiar pang of jealousy within me, a reaction that invariably surfaced whenever I observed him with an attractive woman. Deep down, I couldn't shake the sense of inferiority I harbored towards him. At 48, Mike remained a captivating figure, more dashing now than in his youth, towering and robust, with a flourishing business of his own and leadership in the local Chamber of Commerce. The prospect of today's proceedings not ending favorably filled me with dread, as it meant potentially losing the solace of his embrace forever. Mike barely acknowledged my entrance as I followed my attorney into the room. I felt my complexion drain as Mike's elegant, fiery-haired attorney gently grasped his left forearm just above the wrist, a gesture of assurance that she stood by him. While slightly out of place in that professional setting, it wasn't entirely inappropriate. Officially, it was a display of client support and reassurance. Yet I couldn't help but interpret it as a signal of eagerness to conclude their professional relationship and explore a personal one. I knew all too well the pleasures she might anticipate if such a transition occurred. After all, Mike possessed both physical endowment and adeptness in its use, a fact I was intimately familiar with from years of experience. Mike's face lit up with his characteristic, warm grin as he turned to his attorney, but the expression quickly faded into neutrality before he glanced back at me. I felt an overwhelming urge to prostrate myself before him, to confess my shortcomings and beg for forgiveness, pledging to spend the remainder of our 28-year marriage doting on him endlessly. However, this wasn't the scenario I had envisioned. Frustrated by Mike's steadfast refusal to engage with me, I found myself compelled to arrange this meeting through my attorney. As my attorney engaged in conversation with the red-haired attorney, I settled into the chair opposite Mike. Retrieving the manila folder from my oversized purse, I unfolded it and laid out my meticulously prepared 2-page script. Catching Mike's faint smile, I was reminded of his familiarity with my penchant for thorough preparation, cultivated over our 3 decades of acquaintance. Mike proceeded to open his laptop, connecting a pair of small speakers and placing a sheet of paper and a pen beside it. Then, unsettlingly, he rested his hands on the table, his expression eerily blank, devoid of anger, hatred, grief, or any discernible emotion whatsoever. Having dedicated 3 days to meticulous preparation, I had committed my script to memory, leveraging my deep understanding of Michael Henderson to craft words that would resonate deeply with him. As the attorneys ceased their conversation, the female attorney took charge of the meeting. Well, we're all aware of the purpose of our gathering. Mrs. Jenny Henderson, the respondent, has agreed to sign the divorce petition under the condition that my client, Michael Henderson, listens to her for a minimum of 1 hour. If everyone is ready, I suggest we commence the hour now. With a twist of the dial, she set a small kitchen timer on the table, its loud ticking punctuating the room's silence. I couldn't shake my annoyance at Mike's insistence on involving his attorney in what should have been a private meeting. Despite my reservations, I was poised to bare my soul over the next 45 minutes, aiming to compel Mike to acknowledge his own faults, even if only partially justifying my own actions. The prospect of revealing such personal matters in the presence of strangers only amplified my discomfort. But dwelling on the negatives served no purpose. I had no choice but to proceed. Glancing at my now superfluous notes on the table, I recalled the advice of my friend Diana, who had used a similar approach to salvage her own marriage after infidelity. Their ego is wounded, she had advised. Begin by tending to that. Clearing my throat, I prepared to make my opening move. Thank you for meeting with me today, Mike. I want to start by acknowledging that I was wrong in my actions. None of what happened was your fault. It was entirely my own selfishness and lack of consideration. It took me some time to realize this, but I felt it was important to be honest with you from the outset. As I reflected on my behavior, I came to understand the depth of my mistakes. However, I also recognized that our dynamic might have played a role, albeit indirectly. I believe you want to forgive me, but perhaps you need a justification to do so. My intention in speaking openly about my faults is to provide you with that justification. If our children were still at home, I might have played the keeping the family together card, knowing it would likely resonate with you. But I wanted to approach this conversation with transparency and sincerity. Glancing at your reaction, I realize that you're meticulously noting down my words. Your expression remains neutral, and you haven't even looked at me directly. It seems you're processing what I'm saying, and I hope that my honesty will eventually lead to understanding and reconciliation between us. That nearly threw me off completely. My initial words mirrored his expectations precisely, which shook my confidence. In my arrogance, I had overlooked the fact that not only had I crafted my argument based on 30 years of knowing him, but he had spent those 30 years observing me as well. I admit, I was rattled, so much so that I stuck strictly to my prepared script. As I mentioned, Mike, it was all my doing and the result of some foolish, self-centered choices I made. I felt adrift with the children gone and with age creeping up, feeling unattractive and useless when I encountered Jasper through my involvement in the church committee. He was subtle, a true master of persuasion. He knew precisely how to manipulate and when. He initially presented himself as a supportive friend, lending an ear to my troubles after church gatherings, especially during your frequent absences last year. Then, one day, we were unexpectedly ousted from the church right after a meeting. Jasper suggested we grab coffee, and foolishly, I agreed. It all seemed innocent enough. He portrayed himself as a caring confidant, and I failed to realize his adeptness at dismantling a woman's defenses. Well, from coffee shops, we progressed to restaurants where he lamented about his wife not understanding him. I know it's a tired cliche, but by then, I had placed my trust in him. The restaurants grew increasingly upscale, the gifts he bestowed upon me increasingly lavish. Oh, Mike, you can't imagine how flattering it is to have a man 15 years, my junior, attempting to court me. You would have been proud, though. It was over 4 months ago when he propositioned me, and I refused. I realize I should have severed ties with him then, once his intentions became clear, but by that point, I had grown somewhat reliant on the boost his compliments and attention provided to my ego and confidence. I paused, sniffing at this juncture, wiping my eyes with the finger I had unwittingly rubbed against the piece of onion in my pocket. It stung terribly, rendering me hesitant to touch my other eye. With one eye watering profusely, I halted, then resumed, stumbling over my words as I hesitated. Oh, my dear, I'm filled with shame for not ending things with him sooner. He took me to a fancy restaurant and splurged on a $300 bottle of Grange, even though he doesn't drink wine. Instead of letting it go to waste, I ended up consuming nearly all of it. I'm almost certain that was his plan all along. I was too tipsy to resist him by the time we left the restaurant. He offered to drive me home, and foolishly, I agreed. When we pulled into our driveway, he leaned in and kissed me, and I was too intoxicated to push him away. You know how I become after a drink or two. Then he began touching me, well, you know where. At that point, my reasoning was completely skewed, and all I could think about was getting him out of the driveway before the neighbors spotted us. That's why I suggested he park inside the garage. Admitting that I even considered the possibility of Jasper staying for a while in the car was a bit of a gamble. I understood the risks involved. I knew enough about men to understand that being cuckolded is a devastating blow to one's ego, and I wanted to assure you that no one else would ever find out about it. Well, except for the 2 lawyers, of course. Well, as the garage door was closing, Jasper stepped out of his car and resumed kissing me. As I mentioned, I had consumed most of a bottle of Grange and was in no state to resist. He took the lead, guiding me inside with my own key. I directed him to one of the spare bedrooms and, to my everlasting regret, allowed him to take advantage of me. I'm truly sorry, Mike." After Jasper finished, I believe we both drifted off to sleep. I was intoxicated, and he must have been exhausted after pursuing me for 4 or 5 months. I want you to know that I wouldn't have consented if I weren't under the influence. I would have been horrified upon waking, and I would have immediately shown him the door. Then you walked in. When you switched on the lights and entered the room, I've never felt such overwhelming shame. The anguish on your face pierced me to the core. It was then that I realized the immense harm I had caused you and our relationship with one momentary lapse in judgment. Tears still streaming from one eye, I turned to my husband with pleading eyes. After a lifetime of familiarity, I believed I could decipher his expression like an open book, gauging the success of my plea. Yet, to my surprise, his countenance remained impassive. He didn't even glance in my direction. Instead, he busied himself with the laptop before him. I assumed he was taking notes until he evidently clicked on a link, and a voice emanated from the speakers. It was my voice. "Hugh, don't kiss me, your breath smells like beer," the recording said. Followed by Jasper's voice. "What about you with your great breath?" What? I only had 1 glass of house white. The audio abruptly ceased, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Or at least, that's what I think happened. The deafening roar in my mind drowned out any external sounds. Yes, I had felt embarrassed and humiliated when Mike discovered me with Jasper that night, preceding his swift retribution against Jasper's exposed form. But those feelings paled in comparison to the overwhelming shame of being caught in such a colossal lie. It completely shattered me. I had been so certain that my rehearsed script would suffice. My gaze darted around the room, landing momentarily on Mike's smug lawyer, whose faint smile barely concealed her satisfaction. I felt a pang of embarrassment as I glanced at my own expression. Meanwhile, Mike stared at me, his face devoid of any emotion, yet filled with expectation. In hindsight, I couldn't fathom why I failed to grasp the significance of the situation. It didn't occur to me to question why Mike possessed an audio recording of my encounter with Jasper that night. Why would he have a recorder unless he anticipated capturing something incriminating? What else had been captured on that tape? These thoughts eluded me in the moment, overshadowed by the sheer humiliation of being caught so effortlessly and without a hint of emotion. As the awkward silence stretched on, I found myself staring blankly at the cryptic shorthand of my notes. Foolishly, I pressed on with my prepared script, clinging to it desperately like a drowning man clutching at debris in the ocean. It happened only once. It wouldn't have repeated, I swear. Please believe me. I lacked the strength to resist him, but I wasn't so out of control that I didn't insist on protection or allow him to take advantage of our bed. He wanted to, you know, but I couldn't do that, no matter how intoxicated I was. You saw us, right? We were in Kelly's old room. Mike gazed at me with a mixture of sadness and detachment. His reaction was disheartening, whether it was his sorrowful expression or his lack of emotion. He shook his head and turned to his computer. I sensed rather than heard him clicking on an icon, and I winced until Jasper's voice echoed through the room. "I can't help but admire you. You stir up so much emotion within me." As the recording ended, another double click broke the silence. Once again, Jasper's voice filled the air. "When can we replicate the thrill of being in your clueless husband's bed?" It was incredible. This time, Mike swiftly terminated the clip and simply stared at me. His silence spoke volumes, laden with accusation. What could I possibly say? Every excuse I had made crumbled under the weight of my own words. The notion of it being a one-time drunken mistake, the claim of not betraying my husband in our own bed, all laid bare as falsehoods in just a few self-condemning sentences. Tick, tick, tick. I was rendered speechless. Despite the embarrassment coursing through me, I stole a glance at Mike, hoping for some indication of his thoughts. Yet his impassive gaze revealed nothing. In my peripheral vision, I noticed my lawyer checking his watch, a stark reminder of the ticking clock and the dwindling 60 minutes I had purchased in a futile attempt to salvage my marriage. So far, it was spiraling spectacularly out of control. I fought to suppress my rising panic. "I'm sorry for deceiving you, Mike, About it being the first time, I began haltingly. I just couldn't bear to hurt you any more than I already had. I thought if I could convince you it was a one-time occurrence, and for the reasons I gave, it would lessen the pain. My words trailed off into silence. Should I confess now, admit to seeing Jasper several times a week for over 6 months? The dilemma gnawed at me. I was uncertain of what Mike knew or didn't know. The recorded conversations revealed that the night he discovered Jasper and me wasn't our sole encounter, but to what extent was he aware? The fact that he had concealed a recording device where Jasper and I typically met hinted at suspicions of at least one other liaison. I was left in the dark. However, I knew one more lie would be my undoing. So it was time to tread carefully, stick to vague statements, and cling to the truth. The reality is Jasper successfully wooed me, though it wasn't immediate. He harbors a preference for older women, and it's undeniable that someone my age feels a surge of validation when pursued by a man nearly as old as her own children. I must confess, I lacked the strength to resist. I was vulnerable and needy. I contemplated fabricating the claim that I had only used the master bed once, solely on the initial occasion. While untrue, it would portray me in a more favorable light. However, I grappled with the uncertainty of how long Mike had been aware of my affair. Ultimately, I chose to maintain silence on the matter. Tick, tick, tick. I couldn't remain silent about all the issues plaguing us. Time was running short, and I urgently needed to rectify this disastrous situation. With no clear plan in mind, I scanned through my notes. Skipping past the initial points that were irrelevant since the hijacking, I honed in on a few words I had emphasized in capital letters. I want you to know, Mike, that my love and respect for you never wavered. My affection for Jasper was simply an additional facet of my life that in no way diminished my feelings for you. It was like an overflow, if you will. As I paused, Mike's attention shifted back to his laptop screen. He furrowed his brow, seeming momentarily confused as he searched for something. His expression briefly shifted from neutral to puzzled before he relaxed again. It was clear he had mistaken something on the screen for what he was looking for. As the recording played on, an extension of the paused soundtrack, I realized his frown had been due to this confusion, not any reaction to my words. I silently wished he hadn't figured it out. Now he would start the clip over. I listened once more to Jasper's question about sharing our marital bed, and once again I winced at my own response, feeling condemned by my own words. You have to admit, sweetheart, your husband can be quite clueless at times. Remember that incident when he came home early and I had to hide in the closet? What a laugh. Yeah, but he's my clueless guy. When we first started this, I found it endearing how much he trusted me, even when the signs were glaringly obvious. Now, though, I see your point. He's just oblivious. Sometimes I wonder if we could have a little fun right under his nose, and he wouldn't even notice. The disdain evident in my voice, along with the words themselves, brought a stark realization. I was beating a dead horse. With that tone and those sentiments, I couldn't even convince myself that I still harbored love and respect for my husband, let alone convey it to you. Once again, I found myself engulfed in a whirlwind of confusion. Prior to this conversation, I had convinced myself of my enduring love and respect for Mike. But after my actions and words, how could that still hold true? Tick, tick, tick. In the heavy, oppressive silence following the latest blow to my prospects, Mike turned his gaze towards me. Unable to meet his eyes, I turned instead to his attorney. The disdain etched on her face was so palpable that it made me flinch involuntarily. Any lingering doubts about Mike's significance to her were obliterated by the raw emotion displayed in that expression. I shifted my gaze away from her, only to find myself met with a similar disdain from my own attorney, who failed to conceal it quickly enough. Here I was entrenched in a battle for my future, surrounded by individuals who regarded me as nothing more than an inconvenience, and one of them was supposed to be advocating for me. My confidence dissipated like mist in the midday sun, followed closely by my sense of self-worth. Perhaps that's why I found myself returning to my notes, steeling myself to take a more assertive stance. It's undeniable, Mike, that over the past 6 months or so, your attention towards me has dwindled, taking me for granted, frequent business trips, and, dare I say, a growing emotional distance. All of this coincided precisely with the departure of our children, leaving me feeling adrift. You were absent when I needed you most, failing to reassure me when I was at my lowest, leaving me to grapple with feelings of age and unattractiveness on my own. I halted, and Mike's attention swiftly reverted to his incessant screen. Once more, his fingers danced across it, and I couldn't help but cringe. The document he opened contained a transcript of Jasper's voice, capturing a moment shortly after our unsettling encounter, just before Mike took us out. "Apologies, sweetheart, but it's been nearly 2 weeks since we've been together." You know how I like it intense." "No, seriously, 2 weeks is too long. Can't we make time to see each other more often?" "Oh, quit complaining. It's been 2 weeks for me too, and I have needs as well, especially since you asked me to limit Mike's attention. He had a trip planned last week, but it got canceled last minute. We could have slipped away somewhere. You're only getting attention tonight because Mike had an urgent meeting to attend. I wish he traveled more often too, darling, believe me." "Well, I want more," Jasper insisted, sounding petulant. "You'll receive what I decide to give you." Once again, the playback ceased. Feeling ashamed, I cast my gaze downward, avoiding the inevitable accusatory stares. Memories of my emotional state during that conversation flooded back to me. The reality was that the excitement of having a lover, even someone as youthful and lively as Jasper, had begun to fade. Jasper's and my affair, the betrayal of my husband, was eroding my respect for Mike, and that, above all else, was gnawing at my conscience. The loss of respect, I believe, was the primary reason for my growing emotional detachment from my husband. As I prepared for this meeting, intending to confront him about his supposed emotional withdrawal, I realized it was a facade. In order to justify continuing my betrayal, I had been emotionally divorcing myself from Mike. Rejecting him in bed had been a simple choice because the tenderness of Mike's touch was so distinct from Jasper's impatience that there was no room for confusion. This served as a stark reminder to me that my actions were fundamentally wrong. So I began to rebuff my husband's advances. He persisted for a while, but then stopped. Suddenly, I grasped what should have been glaringly obvious to me months ago. Mike had abruptly ceased our sexual intimacy around the same time. He started working longer hours and traveling more frequently. Initially, I had interpreted this as his way of emotionally distancing himself from me as well. Now, with closed eyes and a mind clouded with confusion, I struggled to discern who was distancing themselves from whom. And then the realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. Mike must have been aware of my affair for quite some time. That's why he had the foresight to hide a recorder in Kelly's room. Damn it. My entire strategy for this meeting had been centered around downplaying my transgression, soothing Mike's bruised ego, and swallowing my pride. All in a desperate attempt to salvage the life and future I yearned for. I had believed I was dealing with a recently provoked bull, attempting to calm his anger. But if my suspicions were correct, and he had known about my infidelity for at least 2 weeks before confronting me, that he was far more cunning than I had ever imagined. My efforts to appeal to his emotions were futile, and I was wasting my time. Tick, tick, tick. To put it succinctly, I found myself at a loss for what to do. I excel in planning rather than improvising, hence the meticulous 2 pages of notes I had prepared. Yet time was slipping away, underscored by the relentless ticking of the clock. In a state of desperation, I grasped at my notes, searching for a glimmer of hope. However, the throbbing in my head made it difficult to absorb the words, and nothing immediately stood out. It dawned on me that the notes were now a hindrance, as the dynamics of the situation had shifted dramatically. If Mike had been aware of my infidelity for some time, what were his thoughts? Undoubtedly, he would be hurt by my betrayal, but more importantly, he would be consumed by concerns about my intentions. Was I dissatisfied with the intimacy he provided? Did I find him uninteresting and yearn for something more adventurous? Did I harbor feelings for Jasper? Was I plotting to leave him? These were fears and doubts I could potentially address. With trepidation, I dared to meet his expressionless gaze, contemplating whether to take a risk and spin more lies. If only I could recall the details of my conversation with Jasper on that pivotal night. If only I could be certain that it was the only night Mike had recordings of. Surely the sequence must have been suspicion, setting up recorders, confrontation. He couldn't have been certain for long. He simply wasn't skilled enough as an actor. I yearned desperately to convey the truth, that I still harbored love and respect for him. My desperation to prevent him from leaving underscored this, transcending even my fear of losing the comfortable lifestyle we shared. Yet how could I convince him of my respect when we had all heard me disparage him in front of my lover? What value was there in attempting to justify such denigration as a misguided attempt to assuage my conscience and forge a connection with Jasper? None that I could discern. The same dilemma applied to professing my enduring love for him. If I had caught him in the act of infidelity, not even the strongest persuasion could have convinced me of his continued love for me. Thus, convincing him of my enduring love and respect would have to be a gradual process. Time bought by persuading him to refrain from demanding divorce papers was now my most precious commodity. But how many seconds remained on that relentless timer before he made his final decision? One thing was certain. My next words had to carry significant weight. I steeled myself and met Mike's gaze across the table. I understand it may appear that I lost my love and respect for you, Mike, but I want to assure you that this is not the case. My love for you and our life together remains unwavering. I envision spending my days by your side, and yours alone. The glimpse of life without you, coupled with the shame I felt when you discovered my betrayal, serves as a constant reminder to stay committed to our relationship for the rest of my days. You can trust in that. Jasper was merely a distraction, a fleeting indulgence when I sought a temporary ego boost. There was no love involved, no intention of ever running away with him. Admittedly, it was a mistake, a grievous one, especially yielding to his absurd suggestion of reducing our intimacy. I can't fathom why I entertained that idea, especially after convincing myself that I was merely compensating for what I perceived as your inadequacies. He didn't offer anything more in the bedroom than you do, despite his youth, and he lacked the finesse and consideration you possess. My actions were purely driven by lust and selfishness, an egoistic escapade. Yes, indulging in physical pleasures until exhaustion was momentarily satisfying, but devoid of any emotional connection. I didn't engage in any of the adventurous activities with him that I've denied you for so long. My voice trailed off as Mike's gaze remained fixed on me, his finger finally pressing the anticipated button. Once again, the room was filled with the sound of my voice, magnified beyond measure. In the recording, my voice echoed with the most explicit desires shared during intimate moments with my partner. They say time dilates in moments of peril. The unraveling of a marriage feels akin to that, as if the world around me moved in slow motion while I remained in real. To my left, my lawyer slammed his pen onto the table, casting me a glance filled with utter revulsion, a stark reminder that even financial compensation couldn't secure someone's loyalty at this juncture. Meanwhile, Mike's attorney shifted to get a better view of the laptop screen. It dawned on me then that the files Mike had been playing weren't audio recordings as I initially assumed, but rather video clips. The realization heightened my distress. Once again, the woman who had shamelessly clung to my husband's arm displayed her solidarity through physical touch. Mike's response was a blow that cut deeper than any intentional attack could. Though his gaze wasn't directed at me, but at the screen before him, the subtle shift in his expression betrayed the anguish he must have experienced upon discovering that the person entrusted to have his back was instead diverting attention elsewhere. As a solitary tear escaped his eye, I couldn't discern if it was an act of torment or a form of steeling himself for what lay ahead, fixated on the unfolding scenes on the screen. In the dwindling clarity of my thoughts, I grasped onto a few now irrelevant details. The timestamp on the recording indicated it was from a session at least 3 weeks prior to our confrontation, suggesting that Mike had been silently observing my betrayal for some time, long enough to discern a damning pattern. As my lawyer slid the divorce papers across the table, I found myself unable to summon any defense or justification against the damning evidence my husband, my beloved Mike, had uncovered. With effortless precision, he dismantled every rationalization, every attempt to downplay my transgressions, leaving nothing but the stark reality of our irreparable rift. It was over. In this orchestration of our demise, Mike played the role of conductor, directing each movement without uttering a word, utilizing the talents and skills of those around him. Yet it wasn't Mike who executed me. It was me. I had willingly ascended the scaffold, blindfolded myself, tightened the noose around my own neck, and pulled the lever. Mike merely provided the structure and walked away, leaving me to face the consequences of my own actions. The realization hit me like a freight train as he effortlessly triggered that final clip, without a moment's hesitation or even a glance. He knew my every move, my every word, as if he had unfettered access to the inner workings of my mind. I had meticulously constructed my arguments based on decades of intimate observation, forgetting that he too had been observing me for just as long, with those sharp, discerning eyes. The weight of shame and humiliation became suffocating, igniting a primal urge to flee. I craved escape, back to the familiarity of the house that still held remnants of my life, at least until the eviction notice, a cruel part of the settlement, was enforced by Mike. I sought solace in the embrace of my children, hoping they would never uncover the depths of my betrayal and would continue to love me unconditionally. Yet, the path to freedom demanded a heavy price, the relinquishing of most of my life's acquisitions. With a trembling hand, I lifted the pen and affixed my signature to the two agreements, a single fluid motion betraying the turmoil within. I had been taken aback by the valuation of Mike's business, a revelation from my lawyer's assessment. Surely Mike couldn't have concealed such a significant aspect of his assets for long. By that juncture, mercifully, the final recording had concluded, returning the room to a tense silence punctuated only by the ticking of the clock. My lawyer swiftly gathered the signed documents, passing one copy to the woman who had become a bitter symbol of betrayal, before stowing the rest in his briefcase and exiting the room. I remained seated, gripped by a conflicted paralysis, torn between the urge to flee and the desire to depart with a semblance of hope, a flicker of optimism to nurture into something more substantial, a reminder to myself that amidst the wreckage, I still harbored a concern for Mike's well-being. The abrupt blare of the alarm shattered my reverie, propelling me into motion. With resolve, I rose to my feet, determined to leave behind a parting message tinged with positivity, even as the woman, now clinging to Mike's arm with both hands, exuded an aura of predatory satisfaction. Don't jeopardize your future by seeking vengeance against Jasper when he resurfaces, I implored, mustering what remained of my composure. I could never forgive myself if your life took such a dark turn. In response, Mike presented yet another damning clip, mercifully devoid of my voice, but instead featuring the sharp tone of another woman. What has that wretched boy done now? I'll tear him apart if my brothers don't get to him first. His wife, presumably. Initially, I had interpreted Jasper's silence after Mike's altercation as fear. Now, doubts gnawed at my conscience. If Jasper faced the consequence of divorce and destitution for his infidelity, it seemed a fitting punishment. But the prospect of his demise, due to his association with me, added another weight to my already burdened conscience. As I rose to bid Mike farewell, I found myself unable to meet his gaze. Whether he wore his usual inscrutable mask, laughed, or cried, each expression cut me deep, serving as a painful reminder of the harm I had caused this decent man. He had lost nearly everything I held dear, save for the house and money, and suffered a profound emotional blow, all because of me. I knew I deserved whatever punishment he might mete out. With tear-filled eyes, I managed a feeble "goodbye, darling," as I made my way to the door, my feeble attempt to salvage remnants of our past life swiftly dismissed like an insignificant pest. Perhaps my daughter, Laura, would visit while I drowned my sorrows in oblivion. If not her, then maybe my son, Kevin. As I reached for the door handle, voices reached my ears from behind, briefly igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps there was a chance for reconciliation. Yet, it was not the anticipated conversation, but rather another damning recording. A young male voice, thick with emotion, exclaimed, "Mom did what?" The nerve. Followed by a familiar female voice questioning, "Are you certain, Dad?" It seemed I would be facing my demons alone tonight, with only the solace of a bottle for company. The third story. Kenny, I'm not happy. I want a divorce. Kenny felt a pang of shock, though he had sensed something brewing. Amelia, his wife of nearly 2 decades, had been confiding in her friend Jenny, who claimed expertise in marriages despite having gone through 3 divorces herself. Kenny, are you listening? I said I want a divorce. Yes, Amelia, I heard you. But this is a serious matter, and I don't want to rush into a response. I tried to be a loving and faithful husband and a good father. If there's an issue, you haven't brought it up before, and our intimacy seemed fine. So I'm at a loss. However, I can't bear the thought of holding you back from happiness. Though it hurts, I'll support your decision. Could you tell me if this has been a recent feeling or if it's been building up? Amelia replied, It's been building. I need space, time to explore other things, maybe see other people. Legally, we'd have to be separated for 90 days after signing the papers. By the end, I might change my mind about the divorce. We might not have to go through with it. Her husband mused, That's similar to what I've heard from others going through divorces. During the 90-day separation, we're both free to see other people without it being seen as cheating. But at the end, we both have to agree to stop the divorce. However, either of us can continue with it without the other's consent. Kenny realized Amelia might not have fully considered that he'd have the same freedom she desired. I thought if I filed first, it was my decision whether to continue or proceed with the divorce. Amelia's certainty wavered. Kenny replied, I don't think it works like that, but just to be clear, I'll file too, so we're on equal footing. Isn't that fair? Amelia hesitated. I suppose. Are you saying you want a divorce? Apparently, I've misunderstood. I thought I was fulfilling my roles as a husband, father, and partner. No, I don't want a divorce, but I won't stand in your way. Honey, I never said you were failing. You've been wonderful in all those roles. I just want to try new things, spend time with other people. It might help me feel better about myself. I just need some space. Being legally separated would give me that freedom. Amelia, you're needing more than what I can provide is essentially me being inadequate. He let the weight of that statement linger before adding, Have you already consulted a lawyer and had the papers drawn up? Ignoring his remark about feeling inadequate, she replied, No, I haven't gotten the papers yet. I'll be using Jar Lewis. He handled Jenny's divorces. There it was. Amelia confirmed the source of this latest push for more from their marriage. Well, I'll likely have my cousin, Karen, handle my side of the divorce. Karen? The one you call the witch from hell? Now, Amelia, I know you're not fond of Karen, but she's actually a decent person. Her reputation as a witch comes from her tough courtroom demeanor. She's a fierce advocate for her clients, regardless of gender. Ironically, after the last family barbecue, probably due to a bit too much to drink, Karen volunteered to handle my divorce for free if I ever needed it. Kenny continued, Well, we have a lot to discuss. I suggest we take the next 2 weeks to prepare for the separation/divorce, so we can start the separation on the 1st of the month. Does that work for you? I suppose. I don't see why we have to do anything before the separation starts. Kenny explained, The purpose of the separation is to simulate what life would be like after a divorce, to see if we really want to go through with it. So, the separation period is like a trial run of post-divorce life. Otherwise, we might end up realizing after the divorce that it's not what we wanted, and that could get messy. Does that make sense to you? I suppose. I hadn't thought of it like that. Amelia's resolve softened. I have an idea. Let's go to the kitchen, grab a legal pad, and start planning what we need to do. I'll make some coffee. With that, Kenny got out of bed and headed to the kitchen, leaving Amelia lost in thought. By the time Amelia joined him in the kitchen, the coffee was brewing, and Kenny was jotting down notes on the legal pad. All right, Kenny continued, there's a lot to consider. I guess we should start with the kids. What do you mean? We'll have to explain to them what's happening, and we need to make sure we both say the same thing. And most importantly, we need to assure them that our divorce isn't their fault. Amelia grew worried. their daughters were sensitive and might not handle the news well. I don't think we need to tell them that much. Can't we just wait the 90 days and maybe we won't have to say anything at all? But dear, how will you explain it to them when they ask, why doesn't Daddy live here anymore? But why wouldn't you be living here? We'll still be their parents. I thought you'd continue living here during the separation, and we could, both of us could go out sometimes without disrupting the kids' lives. I don't think that would work, Amelia. First, we'd have to coordinate our dating schedules. One of us might get upset if the other wanted to go on a date one night and the other said it wasn't convenient. We might think the other was trying to hinder us from dating. Most importantly, how will you experience what it would be like if we were to divorce, if I'm still doing all the things you would have to do if we did divorce? Besides, the kids might figure out or hear from others that we've been seen going out with other people. We not only need to tell the girls, but all our relatives and friends need to be informed. Otherwise, they might think we're cheating on each other. The most concerning aspect is that, regardless of how we explain it to them, they might still feel they're to blame. It's unfortunate, but from what I understand of child psychology, it's difficult to prevent children of divorce from feeling partially responsible. Our priority should be to consistently reassure them of our love. They're good kids, and they'll likely adjust over time, though it might require some professional therapy. Plus, they might even enjoy having additional grandparents from your new partner and mine, which could mean more gifts on special occasions. But coordinating birthdays, holidays, and other events will become even more crucial than it is now with just one set of grandparents each. Also, if I stay in the house, you'll have to meet your partner elsewhere, not at home or in an expensive motel. It wouldn't be fair to either of us or to the kids to have a new partner at home while the other is there, and we need to figure out how having two households will affect our finances. Obviously, it means less money for us, since we'll have to cover rent and utilities for my apartment on top of our current expenses. You'll have to start handling the costs and responsibilities we currently share on your own, or I'll have to manage them for the family alone. Joint assets are typically split equally. That means canceling joint accounts, credit cards, and then there's alimony and child support. It's overwhelming. There's so much to sort out before the end of the month. Amelia sat in stunned silence, unsure of what to say. Kenny continued, I'll try to find an apartment close to work, with 2 bedrooms so the girls have a place to sleep when they stay over on my visitation nights. Visitation. In most divorces, visitation means the non-custodial parent gets to see the kids every other weekend and alternate holidays, unless the custodial parent agrees to more. Kenny, I would expect you to spend more time with the girls. They have homework, sports, drama, and other events where they're used to having you around. Plus, you all seem to enjoy your time together so much. Sweetheart, I'll do my best to remain a big part of their lives. However, you or your boyfriend/husband will need to pick up some of the things I've been doing. That's just the reality. Weeknights for visits will be tough because they should be home for school the next day. If I find someone else, she might have kids too, and I might need to help with their homework and activities. You might have to help your new husband with his kids. Then there's the issue of managing clothes and toiletries in 2 places, arranging transportation since I might not live on their school bus route, and just the disruption of routines. It won't be easy for any of us. This isn't going the way Jenny said it would, Amelia thought to herself. She said her husband would fold at the mention of divorce and offer to continue everything he did for the family, but also let her date others on the side. I'm losing control of this situation fast. Kenny, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need to sleep on all of this. Let's talk more tomorrow. I'm going back to bed. Are you coming? She hoped he would join her, hoping sleep would persuade him to give in without all this talk of responsibilities and dividing money. Sweetheart, I need to jot down some more ideas about what needs to be done before bed. You know how my mind works. The more we settle before the 1st of the month, the better we'll both feel. Good night, dear. Amelia didn't sleep much. She had to talk to Jenny about Kenny's unexpected reaction. Jenny would know what to do next. That assurance finally allowed her to drift off. She woke up and immediately noticed Kenny wasn't in bed, nor did it look like he had slept there. Good grief. That fool stayed up all night working on that separation list. But when she entered the kitchen, Kenny wasn't there, just the pad on the table. She found him sound asleep in the guest bedroom. Returning to the kitchen, she started breakfast. While cooking, she glanced at the pad. Under things to change responsibility to Amelia were mortgage, homeowner's insurance, utilities, cable, cell phone, garbage, internet security, car payment, car insurance, health insurance, dental insurance, Amazon Prime, LifeLock membership, Life Flight medical evacuation, and the list went on. That was on top of all the banking changes they had discussed the night before. On the next page, there was a breakdown of his new expenses related to his apartment and a projected budget showing how much alimony and child support she would need to maintain their current lifestyle for her and the girls. It showed they would be several $100s short per month. He also listed ways to cut expenses, like cutting out his beloved trips to Waffle House and Starbucks. That will really hurt him, she chuckled. Then he added her gym membership, the women's groups she belonged to, and eating out more than once a week. He even listed some of the kids' expenses, like fees for extracurricular activities, uniforms, and other required materials. The effect on the children wasn't part of her divorce plan. On another page, he listed chores that Amelia would have to do with him gone or hire someone else to do, like putting gas in the car, scheduling car maintenance, calling the plumber, heating and air conditioning repair service, lawn mowing, car washing, grocery shopping, and more. She had to put the pad down. Why isn't Kenny acting like he's supposed to and giving me what I want? I need to call Jenny before Kenny gets up. Hello. Jenny, it's Amelia. We have to speak quietly because Kenny is asleep nearby. How did it go last night? Jenny's voice expressed excitement and expectation of a positive response from Amelia. Instead of asking what he could do to make things better, so I wouldn't divorce him, he agreed to the separation, and then he started making a list of all the things he does now that I would have to do if we were divorced. Kenny's planning to get an apartment and only taking care of the girls every other weekend. He says we need to actually separate and act like we really are divorced so we can make a more informed decision on whether or not to divorce after the 90 days. He's not acting like divorce is really scary to him. What should I do? Amelia, silly girl. He's just trying to trick you. He's bluffing. There's no way he will sign any real papers. It's pathetic that he has to list all the little things he does to make you think you need him more than you do. Bottom line, you've got control of the kids and you've got control of the area between your legs. Those two things alone will keep him in line. It's all talk on his part, don't worry. Before long, you and Thomas will be doing the mamba in bed, and you will still have your husband and home. I hope you're right, and Thomas better be worth it. Well, Kenny hasn't really done anything yet. I'll stay strong at least until I see what he's really going to do, if anything. Thanks, Jenny. He's getting up. I have to go. Anxiously, Amelia asked, Hey, Kenny, would you like some coffee? Her husband staggered over to the coffee pot and replied, Having coffee that late last night was not a good idea. Barely got any sleep. Why didn't you come to bed with us? Well, I was on my way, but I didn't trust myself. Sweetheart, we're still married. I belong to you and you alone, at least until the separation. Can't we keep acting like husband and wife until then? I'm afraid not. I'm more convinced than ever that we need to start the separation process as soon as possible. Even though it won't officially start until the first of the month, it really began the moment you said, I'm unhappy. I want a divorce. It'll be tough for me, but I truly want to see you happy, even if I'm no longer a big part of your life. Kenny, you keep forgetting. It's just a separation, not a divorce. Relax. Give me some time to figure things out, and I bet we'll stay married and things will be even better than before. I wish I could believe that. I've decided to take the day off. Billy can supervise the repair crews for a day. That way, I can start setting things in motion for our separation. These changes won't take effect until the first of the month, so we'll have 90 days to really experience what divorce would be like. By the way, I'll withdraw more cash than usual for both of us. You'll need to use cash until we can get your own credit and debit/ATM cards. Luckily, we both have separate checking accounts in addition to the joint account. I'll transfer half of the joint account balance to each of our separate accounts. We need to do that now so we can have the new cards and checks ready by the 1st of March. I'll let you know tonight what I've done and what you need to do to take control of your portion of the assets. Oops, you better hurry so you won't be late for work. I'll take care of breakfast and see the kids off to school. Amelia wasn't very productive at her job as office manager for the State Farm Insurance Regional Office. Thomas, as usual, came by to flirt. He was tall, with wavy hair and a smile that could make women melt. After telling Amelia how beautiful she looked and how unappreciated she must be, he asked when they could make beautiful music in the elevator again. What she really wanted to ask was when they might have some alone time to do more than they already had. Amelia began to feel excited again and told Thomas that it wouldn't be much longer before they could be together in a more comfortable setting. She promised to call him later about elevator time today. When he left, her worries about her separation from Kenny were replaced by memories of Thomas's kisses, fondling, and groping in the all too brief elevator rides they had shared over the past few months since he had started working there. When Amelia got home from work, she could see evidence that Kenny had been there during the day. She felt emotionally better prepared to deal with him regarding all the financial matters he had discussed. It seemed simple. She had 90 days to fool around, they would stay married, and then she would try to figure out how to have sleepovers with Thomas without getting caught. Sitting down at the kitchen table, she looked at the legal pad again. Kenny had added a few more items to the list. Then she noticed a new list titled Possible Women to Date. There were 2 columns. Women who have already expressed interest and women to see if they are interested. The columns weren't long, but the names in the first column shocked her. One was her own sister, Erica. That witch, Amelia immediately called her. Erica greeted, "Hey, Amelia, how's everything?" "How dare you try to steal my husband, Amelia? You tramp." "Whoa, hold on there. What on earth are you talking about?" "Kenny showed me a list of women interested in dating him, and your name was on it." "I don't know about any list, but one time, after a bit too much to drink, I jokingly said if he ever smartened up, I'd apply to be your replacement." "Wait, why would he show you a list like that? Is there trouble in paradise? Did you catch him, or did he catch you with someone else?" "No, it's not that. I just told him I needed some space, time to myself, to explore new relationships." Erica cut in. "Aha, so you're the one exploring outside the marriage. Who is he, or are there multiple people?" "No, I haven't been with anyone else, yet. Kenny and I are just separating for 90 days to decide if we want to stay married. It's not a big deal." "It sounds like you got someone in mind, but frankly, I don't care. So, you're saying soon you'll be legally separated, and if anyone wants Kenny, you won't do anything about it. Let me know the date, and I guarantee that 1 second past midnight, I'll be calling him, begging for a date, offering my body however he wants, and assuring him I'm not my sister, and I'll be loyal to him forever. You'd better stay away from him, or what, big sister? You're powerless with the legal separation in place, and the irony is, you're the one who initiated it. For years you've boasted about what a great provider, husband, and father he is, and now you want to throw it all away. How foolish can you be? Did you suddenly turn blonde? Like I said, let me know as soon as he's available." Amelia tried to calm down after the call, but looking at the list of women didn't help. There was Jenny, his secretary for 6 months, a single mother of 1, much younger than Kenny. She was first on the list, indicating her interest in dating her husband. Probably desperate for a sugar daddy, Amelia thought. 2 names were women from the neighborhood, one of them married. I guess that's what the M next to her name meant. The other 2 sounded like Kenny's coworkers. He had done a lot of handyman work for the neighbors, building up his business from his college days as a handyman. I guess he was looking at the women's plumbing as well as their house's plumbing. 3 women were simply noted as waitress at Waffle House, barista at Starbucks, and clerk at Walmart. I wonder how many other women find him attractive. I really didn't think he would date during a separation. Maybe he already has someone in mind. Kenny entered the house and saw his wife looking over the legal pad. He knew what the next topic of conversation would be. "Well, Kenny, it seems you haven't wasted much time finding a replacement for me. My own sister, how could you? I was just trying to catch up with you and your choice of companionship." "What? What do you mean? I don't have a boyfriend. I just want to explore new relationships." "Like with Thomas Bryant." "How do you know about? What does Thomas Bryant have to do with this?" "I was at Walmart today and bumped into Sylvia, your boss's secretary, on her lunch break. She's a notorious gossip. Don't believe anything she says." After a pause, Amelia couldn't resist asking, out of curiosity, what did she say? Sylvia said, "I hear you're good friends with one of our new associates, Thomas Bryant." I must have looked confused because she explained, since he visits your wife's office several times a day and you have lunch together every day, I asked Amelia what was going on. You know our president has a strict policy on intra-office fraternization. Anyway, she explained that Thomas was an old college buddy of yours and that you all hang out frequently. I acted like I remembered and said, "Oh yeah, Thomas. So that's why I think Thomas is at least one of the men you're interested in during the separation. How far have you two gone in your exploration?" "I was just trying to get that busybody out of my business. Thomas is just a friend. We haven't done much except talk, and I guess he might be someone I'd want to date. He's very kind to me and compliments my looks, even when I'm not at my best." "Anything new? Have you two been up to anything you wouldn't want me to know about?" Amelia's face betrayed her as she quickly recalled the elevator scenes. "More importantly, have you two done anything his wife would object to?" "Wife? He's not married. Who told you he was married? What kind of woman do you think I am?" "Well, you don't seem very inquisitive about the men you're interested in. Let me pull up his Facebook page again. That's where I got the info." After a minute of searching, Kenny continued, "Is that Thomas Bryant?" "Yes, it is." "What does it say about his marital status?" "It says he's married to Cynthia and has 2 boys. Amelia quickly offered, "This could be outdated. He might be divorced by now." "Take another look. It was updated 3 days ago. Don't you think he'd update something as important as whether he's married or not? And look at what his wife wrote recently. The boys and I can't wait to join Thomas when school's out. Johnny and Thomas Jr. have been important players on their high school baseball team and might make it to the state tournament. We'll be reuniting our family as soon as the school year is over, or maybe later if they make it to the state tournament." "That jerk. I swear he didn't mention he was married. I wouldn't do anything to break up a marriage." "You don't seem to have any qualms about ending your own marriage," came the blunt observation. Amelia felt the weight of her actions in the awkward silence that followed. She needed a moment to gather her thoughts. Thomas was the primary reason she desired separation, but she couldn't reveal that to Kenny. "Well, he was just one of several men I might consider dating. I could make a list just like you did." Kenny interjected, "Oh, I just had another thought. If we end up wanting to reconcile after the divorce, we should exchange medical reports to ensure we're both clear of STDs. You're just being spiteful now. Just cautious. I hadn't really planned on dating anyone, since it might only be temporary, but if I feel the urge, I might seek out a professional. I'm sure you'd want to feel safe, just as I would. It's not just about you, it's about who you've been with and who they've been with, and so on." Kenny tried not to reveal how much he relished dismantling Amelia's scheme. While Amelia seethed, Kenny changed the subject. "Okay, Amelia, I promise to update you on what I've done to facilitate the separation process. I accomplished a lot today, most of it set to start on March 1st. Sorting out the bank and credit card accounts is the priority, so you have easy access to your funds. We can handle the mortgage, utilities, etc. over the next week. Oh, and I have some good news financially. Did I mention that my secretary, Jenny, manages the apartments at Royal Arms at night? They're close to work, so I inquired about vacancies. They have a 2-bedroom apartment available, but I need to act fast. Normally, they'd be too pricey, but Jenny said if I took on the role of apartment maintenance, we'd get a 50% discount on rent. That means more money for you and the kids." Amelia interjected, "You haven't signed a lease yet, have you? Remember, we have 90 days, and if you play your cards right, you might be able to move back here." She refrained from mentioning her thoughts about his secretary, knowing it wouldn't help. "No, I haven't signed a lease yet. I had to explain why I was apartment hunting, though. She mentioned they usually don't rent month to month, but since it's just for 90 days, she thought she could make it work. And, when Jenny found out about the separation, she sort of hinted she'd like me to ask her out. It surprised me, given the age gap. I had no idea she found me attractive. I politely declined, explaining the workplace rules about employee-supervisor relationships. Jenny said she'd consider leaving her job if that was all it took. So, that's why I added her to the list." Amelia's frustration was palpable, but she held her tongue, knowing her thoughts would only escalate the situation. Without waiting for Amelia's response, Kenny continued, "There's something else you might like. I've booked 2 tickets for a 10-day holiday in Hawaii. I was waiting to tell you because it was supposed to be a surprise for our 20th anniversary." Amelia's expression lit up with excitement. "Hawaii? Oh, Kenny, you know how much I've always wanted to go there. That's fantastic. I can't wait for us to lounge on the beaches and swim in the ocean. Thank you, thank you, thank you." However, Kenny's face remained stoic, not reflecting his wife's enthusiasm. "We are not going to Hawaii. When you told me you wanted a divorce, I had to assume we might not make it to our 20th anniversary. When I tried to cancel and get a refund, they said that at this late date, I could only get a 20% refund. After thinking about it, I realized that going to Hawaii was really more your dream. I thought you should still go, so I did get them to change the tickets to you and one person to be named later. It might be a very helpful start for your new relationship if you could offer your new man an all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii. But, Kenny, you're the one I wanted to go to Hawaii with. We could postpone the separation thing. In fact, I'm thinking of canceling the whole thing. I'm not that unhappy with my life now that I've had a chance to think about it." "I'm sorry, Amelia. I've given this a lot of thought. I don't think I could enjoy myself knowing we would be coming back to possible divorce proceedings. Even if you canceled the divorce, you can't cancel your having said you want a divorce, nor can you cancel my imagination about what you and Thomas did when you didn't do anything much. I'm afraid I believe you have already committed adultery, even though you may not have actually had intercourse. I probably will go on with the divorce no matter what you decide, even though I cannot imagine my life without you and being only half a dad to my girls." Kenny then went upstairs to the guest bedroom. Amelia was crushed. She felt like she had nowhere else to turn but to Jenny. She dialed her number. "Hey, Amelia, what's going on?" "Jenny, everything's fallen apart. Kenny found an apartment, and his flirtatious secretary is making moves on him, and now my sister wants him too. And to top it off, he gave me the tickets to Hawaii for our anniversary, but won't go with me. He said I could take my new boyfriend instead. What am I supposed to do?" "Whoa, slow down. What's the real issue here? You and Thomas could still have a fantastic time soaking up the sun and enjoying each other's company." "No, I found out Thomas is married. His wife and kids are moving here soon. I can't go to Hawaii with him. I want to go with Kenny." "Wait a second. I think I've figured this out," Jenny interjected. "Kenny's playing a slick game. He's lying about booking that trip beforehand. It's a ploy to make you feel guilty and drop the divorce. Call his bluff and he'll cave. Don't worry, with your looks, you'll find someone better than Thomas in no time and still have Kenny and your family." "Oh my goodness. I never thought he could be so deceitful. That jerk. I'm going to make him regret this. Thanks, Jenny. I was about to give in. He's going to pay for this. Talk to you later." When Kenny came back downstairs, he had a small suitcase with him. Amelia remarked, "So you're trying to make it look like you're already moving out? Don't worry, and good riddance." "Actually, I was just going to take a few things over to the apartment, so I wouldn't move out too much at once and startle the girls. Jenny said I could start moving a few things in before the 1st since the apartment was empty anyway. Your mood seems different since we last talked. Let me guess, you've been chatting with your marriage expert, Jenny. If you want to keep our marriage going, you should consult a marriage expert. Jenny's more of a divorce expert. That's all she's been successful at. Don't try to take shots at Jenny. She's on my side. She was the one who saw through your scheme about the Hawaii tickets. You made up that story just to make me drop everything. It won't work. I still want the divorce, and I can't wait for the separation. There are plenty of guys out there who want me and will give me what I need. You're right about one thing, at least. There will be plenty of guys interested in you. I've always felt like the luckiest man alive to have such a beautiful partner, a great co-parent, and, until recently, a loyal wife and lover. What you're wrong about is the Hawaii trip, and I can prove it. Call Lois Perez at Flight Right Travel Agency. She's the one who arranged the trip. Here, I'll call. Flight Right Travel, Lois speaking. We've got some great last-minute deals you don't want to miss. How can I help you? Lois, it's Kenny Hughes again. My wife is on speakerphone with me. It's okay now to tell her about the trip. She had some questions. Sorry, Kenny, it's disappointing you won't be able to go. You were really looking forward to surprising your wife and enjoying the getaway. Mrs. Hughes, what questions do you have? What exactly does this trip include? Amelia snapped. It's our 10-day, 2-island trip, our most popular package. It covers hotel, meals, transportation, hula lessons, luau, tiki dancers, surfing, swimming, and dancing, all in a romantic setting. I've been with my husband a couple of times, and it's really spiced up our marriage. And when did my husband book this trip? Amelia was certain this would expose the ruse. Let's see, according to my notes, he first called about 3 months ago, chose this trip 2 months ago, and paid for it 2 weeks after. Yesterday he called to cancel and get a refund. I could only give 20% back. I was surprised he said to go ahead and you would find someone else to go with you. That tells me what kind of husband he is. You're one lucky lady. What other questions do you have? You need to tell me the name of the other person as soon as possible. I can't reserve the plane tickets until I have the person's name. No other questions. I'll call with the name soon. Amelia tried to think what Jenny might say based on this information. Within seconds she knew, you think you fooled me again, don't you? You've worked a deal with that Lois woman to pretend you had planned the Hawaii trip before I said anything about divorce. Well, I'm smarter than that. She was proud of herself for figuring it out without Jenny's help. Kenny let out a heavy sigh and suggested, what about your parents? What do my parents have to do with this? Who do you think was going to take care of the girls while we were away? Come on, let's give them a call. Amelia was taken aback. No, you don't have to do that. I need some time to think. Sorry, Amelia already dialed. But Kenny. The call was picked up by her mother, who saw the caller ID. Amelia, how are the girls? Good to hear from you. Hi, Mom, Amelia replied uncertainly. Hi, Mom, it's Kenny. We're on speakerphone together. Just a moment. Let me get your father, too. In the background, Amelia and Kenny could hear, Jerry, it's Kenny and Amelia. Come to the phone, dear. Hey, guys, what's going on? Jerry joined the conversation. After Amelia remained silent, Kenny spoke up. This is about the Hawaii trip. Amelia knows now, so you don't have to keep it a secret. Son, we're really sorry to hear you can't go on the trip. You didn't give us much detail when you called this morning. I hope everything's okay. When you called to say you wouldn't need us to babysit during the Hawaii trip because you weren't going, it was disappointing. We were looking forward to having the girls with us for 10 days, and we felt sad for Amelia that you couldn't go with her. We know how much she wanted this trip. Have you decided who to take yet, Amelia? One of the girls? It would be hard on whichever one was left behind. No, Mom, I haven't decided yet. How long ago did Kenny talk to you about the Hawaii trip? I'm not sure. Jerry, do you remember? It was at New Year's, wasn't it? 2 to 3 months ago. He wanted to give us plenty of notice so we could stock up on junk food. Those two can really eat and never seem to gain an ounce. Amelia's mother interrupted. Kenny, is something wrong? Why are you asking when Kenny talked to us? Is there a problem between you two? Oh God, are you breaking up? Amelia responded, No, Mom, well, not exactly. We decided we needed some space, some time away from each other for a while, to recharge the marriage battery, and then probably get back together. Kenny interjected, Amelia, I can't lie to your parents. They've always been honest and straight with me. Mom, Jerry, last Sunday night, Amelia told me she wanted a divorce. Gasps could be heard on the other end of the line. Amelia tried to explain, "That's not what I meant to say, Dad. The first step in divorce procedures is a 90-day separation. I wanted that time to focus on myself, explore new opportunities, and improve myself so I could be a better wife and mother afterwards." "Bullshit," Jerry exclaimed. "I know hippie, liberal bullshit when I hear it. Amelia, do you have a boyfriend on the side?" "No, Dad. No, not really." Kenny wanted to say something but decided against it. Jerry continued as sobs from his wife could be heard in the background. "Well, it sure sounds like it to me. I can't believe you would do something like that. We raised you better. I'm so disappointed. Don't expect us to be polite here, new man, Amelia. We're sorry, Kenny. At least will you promise that you'll still let us see our grandchildren after the divorce?" Amelia, now sobbing as well, jumped in before Kenny could answer. "There's not going to be a divorce. Kenny has blown this all out of proportion. I take it back. No divorce. No separation. I'll talk to you later when things calm down." Kenny looked at Amelia as she cried. Finally, he spoke. "You need to get yourself together. The girls will be home soon." Then he headed to the door with his suitcase. "Where are you going? Didn't you hear me? I don't want a divorce. You don't have to go anywhere." "Amelia, you decided on your own that you wanted a divorce without discussing it with me first. Now you think you can just decide we're not getting divorced because things aren't going as you hoped. You didn't seem to realize that I have a say in this too. After what I've learned about you in the last week, I'm not so sure that divorce isn't a good idea. I'll be grabbing a sleeping bag from the garage and staying at the apartment tonight." "Kenny, please stay. I'm sorry. You said everything was fine before I brought up the idea of divorce. Can't we just forget it and go back to how things were? You said you were happy." "I was happy, really happy. But I can't forget that you said you were unhappy and that you had your separation fling with Thomas all planned out. As far as I'm concerned, you've already committed adultery. Karen told me it would be easy for her to draw up the divorce papers since it's the standard procedure. She'll probably have them ready by tomorrow." Amelia stood her ground. "I refuse to sign those papers." "It won't matter. All she needs to do is ensure you're officially served. She might even do it at your workplace for more witnesses. Maybe she'll even serve Thomas with alienation of affection. I could go as far as serving your boss with violation of company policies, but that would mean both of you losing your jobs. I need you to be able to take care of the girls after the divorce. Maybe I'll just talk to Thomas's wife. That should be enough payback for him." "Why are you being so harsh? I love you, and you love me. Is there anything I can do to make it right? You said divorce would be tough on both of us. Don't you want to avoid that pain? I promise never to mention this mess again. Please, let's stay and figure this out." Tears streamed down Amelia's face. Kenny remained silent and still. Amelia felt she might have gotten through to him. "I vow to be the best wife ever. I won't even glance at another man. I've given you nearly 20 years of a solid marriage, 2 amazing kids, supported your business through thick and thin, even when it meant dealing with your late nights and dirty work. I've been so proud of your success. Everyone slips up. Please, give me another chance. Please." Finally, Kenny spoke up. "All right, here's what I'll do. I'll take my suitcase and sleeping bag over to the apartment. But before I go, I need you to do a few things. Your words and actions have hurt me more than you realize. If your responses meet my expectations, I'll consider canceling or at least postponing the divorce. I'll be back at 7 o'clock. You might want to send the kids to your parents' or a friend's house so we can talk freely." "Okay, I'll do whatever you ask. What do you need me to write?" "First, I want you to apologize for causing this mess, and I want you to beg, not just ask, but beg for my forgiveness. Second, I want you to tell Thomas to stop contacting you. Tell him you'll inform his wife if he persists. Let him know I might file a lawsuit against him and your company if he doesn't comply. Third, I want you to list all the reasons you can think of why I should consider staying married to you. And finally, I want you to call Jenny and tell her that you never want to speak to her again. This is not up for negotiation. If I ever hear the words, "Jenny says I should" again, I'm out of here. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do if you want us to have a chance to stay married? Yes, dear, I understand. I'll have everything ready for you at 7 o'clock, Amelia assured him. Good, I'll see you at 7 o'clock. Kenny picked up his suitcase and left. Amelia decided to tackle the list starting from the end. She rehearsed what she would say to Jenny. Listening to you was the worst decision I ever made. You nearly cost me everything I hold dear. Don't ever call, text, email, or even think about me again. If you see me in a store or restaurant, leave, or I might not be responsible for my actions. Surprisingly, telling Jenny off made her feel good. Then she called Thomas and delivered Kenny's message. She remained unfazed as Thomas transitioned from begging to insults, shutting him up by mentioning her husband might call his wife if he caused any more trouble. The hardest item on the list turned out to be the easiest, the reasons Kenny should want to stay married to her. Once she let go of her desires beyond what she had with Kenny, she found it easy to recall the things that made her happy about their life together. Amelia compiled an impressive list. This should impress Kenny, she thought. She had no trouble crafting a sincere plea for his forgiveness for the divorce scheme. How stupid, selfish, and arrogant I was. Never again. By 7 o'clock, Amelia was ready and feeling confident. She grew increasingly concerned as 7 o'clock came and went without Kenny's arrival. When he finally returned, 5 minutes late and without his luggage, her worry heightened. Kenny's face remained serious, just as it had been when he left that afternoon. Amelia tried to maintain a pleasant and humble demeanor. Here are my responses. I hope they meet with your approval, she said. Kenny studied the list intently. Tears welled up in his eyes as he read through it. Seeing him on the verge of tears, Amelia couldn't help but cry herself, interpreting his emotional reaction as a positive sign. Finally, Kenny spoke. This is very impressive, Amelia. Hope fluttered in her heart, and she started to rise to hug him, but he waved her back to her seat. He continued, What you have here is good, but I still don't feel like you understand how deeply you've hurt me. I'm afraid I have to proceed with the divorce. Amelia was devastated. It felt like a 20-pound weight had been dropped on her heart. Collapsing to the floor, she sobbed uncontrollably. Her sorrow reached depths she had never known before. In her anguish, she whispered, I've ruined my family's life. I'm the worst person on earth. I don't deserve to live. How could I have been so foolish? Kenny knelt beside her and whispered, Now you might understand how I felt. As Amelia continued to sob on the floor, he headed towards the door. Pausing, he looked back at her. Am I correct in assuming that we're free to date other people during the separation? His wife struggled to regain her composure enough to respond. Yes, but her tears interrupted her, making it difficult to continue. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.